Alright, in today's video, we're going to actually talk about one of the biggest issues that I think holds people back from either getting high kills or getting a lot of wins, and that is really cash. And I think it's a little bit more obvious for people that are trying to win. You're typically going to go for recons, maybe a most wanted towards the end, maybe a scavenger somewhere in the mix, a bounty if it's convenient, you got your loadout pretty quick. But when it comes to the kill chasing, I think a lot of people make the huge mistake of going for bounties right off the bat. So we're going to talk about some strategies so you can actually maximize that cash. If you do enjoy the video, let me know by hitting the like button. Goal in today's video is 3,500 likes, so hopefully it can help me hit that number. And if you're brand new looking to find your way back for more Call of Duty content, just make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. Easy just to click the subscribe button and ring that bell. Let's go ahead and get into a few different examples. So when it comes to contracts, there's multiple different variables. Obviously, it depends on where they are at the map. If you're just planning to land super, sometimes there's bounties, sometimes there's scavengers, sometimes there's recons, and there's pros and cons with each of these individual contracts. You got to factor in the entire package. Obviously, when you grab the scavenger ones, you obviously get a couple other bonuses with it, whether it's the additional money and weapons that you get from each one, and at the end of it, you get the bonus, plus you're actually going to get a satchel, which is very important, especially in the climate currently within Warzone, where there's not really a ton of plates. So there's that aspect to it. Obviously, if you're doing a supply run, it's not really worth a lot, but once you go over there, you can multiply that by the number of players. If everyone's alive, you can get a free self-revive, which is $16,000 if you're in a full squad, compared to maybe only getting $4,000 for doing another contract. So there's tons of pros and cons on how you want to approach that, and it's really a matter of figuring out a plan that's going to make the most sense. So let's say you do grab a bounty and the person happens to just take off, or you grabbed it early on when you first landed, and the person just glides away. Now you got to wait the 3 minutes before that bounty wears off, or before it gets poached, because that can help you in your rewards as well. But generally, you want to get the big bulk of the cash. That's why you're grabbing the contract. Fortunately, if you grab a bounty right off the bat, and that could put you in a pretty tricky situation because it kind of sets you back on that multiplier that you're really trying to stack. I would highly recommend trying to get somewhere between 3 to 5 contracts done per game, and that should be the main strategy for a majority of the games that you're playing duos, trios, and quads. Obviously, as a solo, it's a little bit less practical to just freely run around the map and try and get these contracts done, unless you're just going for bounties. But then you can get third party, so there's a lot more going on in solos. But typically in team-based modes, it's definitely important to make sure you stack the contracts. So regardless if you're going for high kills or you're going for the win, I highly recommend going in and finding a recon contract wherever you land. Even if it's super and it's highly contested, what you're going to want to do is make sure you get the recon contract. And the main reason I say to do this one is for a couple different reasons, but the main one is that it is very fast to do. Usually it's within around 200, 250 meters to get to, which generally isn't a very long distance. And if you get a majority of your team on there, the recon is done and completed within about 10 seconds. And that bumps up the multiplier by 40%. So you're going to get 40% more than if you just grabbed a bounty right off the bat. Even though the bounty could be worth more, you end up with the issue where it's kind of hard to judge if the person's going to be able to take off, if they're a little too far. At least with the recon, you're guaranteeing a certain strategy. And if you grab the recon where you typically like to land, you're going to already know where it directs to because it has a limited number of spawns. So if you say, hey, you know what? That's a common recon spot. Land on it. Your teammates can grab it. Literally get some items from that. And then you guys go ahead and grab a bounty or whatever after that point. But, you know, that's really up to you and how you want to do it. The next contract that I would get, because it's also incredibly fast, if you have your full team still alive, I would go for a supply run. And the main reason you want to do supply run is because it is the most valuable contract. And at least at this point, maybe you've got enough guns and stuff like that. You should have a loadout by the time you get to there, because you've done a recon, you looted your area, you have 3 or 4 players combined, you should be able to go directly to that buy station, found a trophy, throw it on a vehicle, push to a buy station as a full team, clear that area, get your loadout, as well as get self-revive, so everyone is completely stacked. So that's 16,000 for a full team self-revives, plus the 10,000 for a loadout, so it's completely stacked. And now you've bumped that multiplier up to 80%. So when you grab the bounty for the first time, you should have done these things relatively quick, because even with the supply runs, they're usually going to spawn between 300 to 500 meters away. Obviously, late game, it could be a little different, but generally at the beginning of the game, around 300 to 500 meters, you need a vehicle to get to. You can just roll up, everyone gets self-revived. That's a 16,000 plus the loadout. And then now you're able to get UAVs, push players. That went from 3,000 per player for that first initial bounty, now you're talking about 5,400 per player, which is an extra 2,400 times 4 players. That's an extra 10,000, which is an additional 2 UAVs, and you don't have to waste time getting self-revives. And obviously, there's certain scenarios where you could grab a bounty, the person's literally in front of you, you kill them, but that ends up being significantly less consistent. Whereas if you know where a recon is, you can grab it, you already know where it's going to pull to, you grab the supply run, and then that allows you to get there quicker. You guys got your entire loadout stacked, everything ready to go, and then you start just full pushing teams, and then every bounty you get beyond that point is already multiplied by a higher magnitude. Another reason to do this is it allows you to have more consistency in getting to the mid game and late game, because if you get completely wiped out when you come back from the gulag, at least 2 of your team members come back from the gulag, one can land directly on a scav, which typically is going to be a little bit less contested since most of the contracts have already been grabbed if they were dove at right at the beginning of the game. So any of the scavs that haven't really been picked up is likely not very contested. So the person could dive on it, the second person can land on the second one, and through the process of completing that scav, they could typically get enough cash to buy back the third player so that they can land on the final scav, and they'll get a total of 4,400 per person, which allows them to buy the last player back and enough money to buy a loadout if they happen to miss that first one that happens right at the end of the first closure. So obviously, if you're trying to go for more kills, it's more advantageous to have a full squad, everyone have a loadout, and allow you to survive in the game longer without everyone getting eliminated. So it just allows for more consistency in your matches, because what I see a lot of times people do is they just do the bounty strategy. Maybe the person runs away, maybe it gets poached. They take their time getting the next one because they're worried about looting. They didn't really get enough money. They don't have plates, so they got to buy plates. They didn't get self-revived. And then when you do a supply run, each person's getting 1,400 on top of the free self-revive. It stacks up pretty quick. It's insane how free that is. And then on top of that, now you're set up for mid-game and late game in case it just doesn't go quite as planned, which typically it doesn't. When you call UAVs, people have ghosts. There's a lot of variables going on. So that one's all about just staying in the game. Obviously, if you're just only primarily focused on going for the win, a lot of times what you can do is stack multiple recons, maybe do a quick supply run, do a few more recons. You're going to know where the later rotations are. You can kind of position yourself strategically. Maybe do a most wanted so that that money stacks up, because if you know where the last circle is, you can position yourself quite well, and then essentially protect that player while that completes, and everyone's going to end up as the same as if you chase down a bounty. So if you've done around 4 or 5 contracts, everyone's going to end up with right around 7,500 cash, which is enough to buy people back, get streaks, buy loadout all over again if you need to, buy players back. There's so many things that you can do with that allows you just to be more successful. So I think that's one of the things people fall into. They don't realize how fast you can do certain contracts. I promise, if you do a quick recon and actually know where the recons are, one, not necessarily for the zone, even though that's kind of cool. Early zone is nice, but if you know if it's going to be a hardship, the goal is to complete contracts to increase that multiplier so that the more people you kill on a bounty, the more cash you will have, because that is typically a problem people run into where they call on a UAV, they're not able to get to that bounty quick enough, and they don't have enough cash. Then they end up looking around and get third-partied, team gets wiped. Then when they come back from the gulag, even if they get to a point where they're starting to recover, it ends up being a very slow and gradual process versus do this and everything is back to normal as if nothing happened. Also, I just wanted to show this real quick in case you want to figure out where it makes sense to do a certain number of contracts. This is the percent difference when you do individual contracts kind of laid out there. I got the recons, the bounties, supply runs, scavengers, most wanted, and even hunted. And hunted kind of falls in line with poached. So if you get a poach or you survive being hunted because someone had a bounty on you, then that allows you to increase the multiplier as well. So one little side note I will throw in there, let's say you are hunted because somebody has a bounty on you and it's counting down, and you decide to grab a bounty or you decide to grab any of the other contracts, it locks it in at that specific rate. So if it's only a short amount of time, it might actually be worth it to wait for the hunted to wear off, because it'll increase that multiplier. And in some cases, that can be significant money, especially when you're doing those types of things, in addition to all the other little things you can get from doing those individual contracts. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the video, learn something new. If you're brand new, looking to find your way back for more Call of Duty content, so make sure you subscribe with notifications on. I do appreciate all the support on the channel. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.